Alright, the Eagles added some crazy athletes, which is not really a surprise. However, with the draft now a wrap, Howie Roseman did something that nobody saw coming. In this video, I'll get into what that was, plus take a look at all the intriguing prospects that are now in Philly. Also, just how close were the Birds to taking Shedeur Sanders, and a couple extra additions you may be sleeping on. Meanwhile, the Dallas Goedert situation is heating up, and the future may have taken a turn for the better, so let's talk about that and everything else from draft weekend. But first, let's run it. What's up, guys? The NFL draft is officially over, and man, I'll just say a lot of that was very unexpected. I mean, first off, this was the first draft in 13 years that Howie Roseman selected at least 10 guys. And not only that, but he did it without taking a 7th round pick at all. Of course, out of those 10 selections, there's some good intriguing talent in there. Although you probably wouldn't believe me if I told you this beforehand that 0 of those 10 picks would be from the Eagles' top 30 visits, yet that's exactly what happened.
Did that go the way you thought it was going to go? Nope.
Yeah, well, that's the first time in forever that something like that's happened, or at least for Philly it is. Just last year, the Birds drafted 5 of their 8 guys based on their top 30 list. And heck, when you go back and look at drafts prior to that, each one is flooded with players who meet that criteria. After all, I feel like nearly every live stream we were saying top 30 visits and relative athletic score, that's the formula.
Well, you were wrong.
No doubt, very wrong. However, I do wonder if we should have picked up on Zack Berman's report whenever he shared that Howie Roseman admitted to slightly changing things for how they approached the top 30 visits this year. By the way, that comment on the visits was back during April 15th when most teams already have their boards finalized. Now, the reason that I bring that up is because it's a little bit comical to see the NFC East basically being full-on copycat mode. Like, check it out. The Dallas Cowboys drafted not 1, but 2 prospects off the Eagles' top 30 list. First in Boston College edge rusher Donovan Ezraku in round 2, and then again later by taking Texas running back Jaden Blue in round 5. Plus, the Commanders got in on that game even earlier, taking Oregon offensive tackle Josh Connerly in the first round, only to follow it up in round 2 with Ole Miss cornerback Trey Amos 3 selections ahead of Philly. Now, for everybody in the live stream, you saw the reaction, but it did feel like every player we mentioned was immediately jinxed into getting taken.
We are cursed, you and I.
FYI, in case you were wondering who the Giants took from the Birds board, that was Purdue offensive lineman Marcus Bowe, which was also in the 5th round. Of course, I'm not going to sit here and deny the fact that those are good picks. Look, we talked about top 30 visits before. Just because the Eagles didn't select those players, I'm not going to recant and be like, oh, wait, actually, no, those weren't. Or I've seen some people throw this idea out there. It's crazy. Howie didn't just put guys on top 30 visits to, throw teams off and say, oh, hey, these are the teams that are the players that the Eagles want, to then just go a different route. They were still interested in those players. But for those on social media who were trolling, making comments like, we got your guys, or better yet, the Washington Commanders fan who said Marshawn Lattimore, Mike Sainristil, and Trey Amos, so you better just run it. Well, let's just say, careful what you ask for.
Saquon! Touchdown! Barkley! Touchdown! Hurts gets a shove. Hurts in lay. Hurts in touchdown. They're gonna go and Hurts is in. Barkley outside. Barkley touchdown. Ripley is in.
Look, the Eagles are going to be fine whether they run it or pass it. Still, you're not wrong to say Howie didn't get the guys at the top of his board. After all, Zack Berman reported that Philly was looking for opportunities to move up, but nothing materialized on night 2, especially due to the fact that the Eagles valued their 2026 picks too much and liked the idea of stockpiling them.
When we were picking where we were in the 3rd round, we're really watching the board, looking for opportunities to move up, and to kind of watching where it was and where we felt like there was an opportunity maybe to get someone who was a little bit higher on our board. And then the opportunity where there was a kind of sweet spot on our board. And as we got closer to our pick, we had a couple of opportunities there that we felt like kind of maximized where we were on our board. And getting the pick next year, I think we're going to be at 12 or 13 picks next year, and a lot of them in the first 5 rounds.
That is an interesting storyline to mention there. And by the way, I'm going to shout out Garrett here on the live stream for kind of first putting this out. I'm not going to take credit for it, but you think about the 2026 draft class, you already had 12 selections going in. The fact that you're not willing to use those and unload the clip for 2025, perhaps it suggests, how he's looking for a bigger move there. You still get some guys in this draft class, but it's at least worth considering. Curious to get your guys' take. Do you agree on that? Other outliers or just thoughts on that one? Granted, I will say either way, there's no denying that Howie Roseman may have dodged a bullet on night 1 thanks to a mistake to report a trade. Yeah, so if you didn't see it, the Eagles were actually going to trade up to 22 with the Los Angeles Chargers and take linebacker Jihaad Campbell there. However, after agreeing to the trade, one of the teams actually failed to call in the deal, which resulted in a no deal, and the Chargers had to pick. I mean, you can't make this stuff up, but sometimes you're good, and then sometimes you're just lucky. Unfortunately, it's just that luck didn't really keep up as much on day 2. Although, make no mistake, even though Andrew Mukuba wasn't the top guy on their board to start round 2, he was someone Howie felt like they had to take at 64 if they wanted him.
It's really hard to find cover safeties and guys who have the ability to come down and play over the slot, play in the middle of the field, have natural instincts, play the ball. You know, he was a slot corner at Clemson before he transferred to Texas. He's an Austin kid. He's got ball skills. He plays with mentality, you know, and this guy, it's just he plays an Eagles brand of football, and I think for us, you know, kind of the value fit the need right there, and we felt like throughout this process, this guy just did everything, checked all the boxes, and that was really what we're looking for from that position.
When you say need, you mean safety or slot?
Well, I think he could do both those things, but he's going to start in the safety room, and I think that at the end of the day, you know, we're looking to add competition to that position, but you know, we really stayed true to our board at that point. We had a couple of guys there that we liked. We considered moving back. But we really liked Andrew and his play temperament and his play style and the tools that he have in his body and the mentality that he'll bring to Philly.
All right, I'll be honest. You guys saw this on the stream, so I'm not going to sugarcoat it here. I had Kevin Winston Jr. ahead of Andrew Mukuba, and I mentioned that as well in terms of safeties. But obviously, I'm not a general manager, and Howie has nailed each one of his top 3 picks in the last 4 drafts. So the man deserves trust, even if you're doubting Mukuba. After all, even if you say another player, it's still a good pick. With Mukuba having been named a freshman All-American and earning ACC Defensive Rookie of the Year honors while at Clemson before he transferred to Texas. And a fun fact for you, he actually roomed with Jeremiah Trotter Jr. back when he was at Clemson. The thing is, this dude only got better after transferring. Get this, during his 2024 season, Drew only allowed 74 passing yards over the course of 401 coverage snaps. And better yet, the passer rating against was 12.1. Yes, you heard that right, 12.1 passer rating. Plus, when it comes to making big-time plays in big-time moments, he definitely does that.
Like, he can line up anywhere at a safety position, down at the same level right there as the linebackers. All right, but watch his reaction right here. All right, he's got the flat tip ball, okay. Tip drill, interception. But he's got ball skills, all right? You watch him right here. He's like in a rat position, right? He's just a rat. Like, here he is cheating, and he's just reading the quarterback right here. All right, this is Carson Beck, right, from Georgia. So he's just reading it, and like he's looking, okay, here comes the crosser. Now here he's hunting something up. Beck never saw him. All right, he's hunting up the crosser at that rat position, takes it away. Different types of interceptions, all right, different types of reads. Like, here he is down here, right, down there in the box right now, all right? So you watch him right here, and he's in that rat position again. All right, this is an easy one. They throw it right to him, all right. At least he doesn't drop it, all right. Can do something with it. But he's got ball skills. I mean, you like him, how he sort of just plays in the middle of the field. Like, here he is at the free safety position right here. All right, you watch his range right here on the go route off the edge. Steps right in front of it, takes the points away, takes the interception. All right, you like that. You like to see the range from the center field all the way to the sideline. All right, and then this right here against Arizona State in a playoff game. Right, here it is. Like, it's not a great route, but he jumps. It's like his ball. He takes it away from Arizona State right there in a playoff game. That was a double overtime win for the Longhorns. That helped to win that game.
Honestly, the main hesitation is that he can sometimes miss tackles by not wrapping up. But look, we got Fangio. I think that he can improve there. The bigger surprise is probably the fact that he didn't really measure up in terms of the relative athletic score compared to what Howie normally drafts. For the record, Drew's 5.12 ranked below average when compared to all free safeties in the draft since 1987. Although the more you watch him, I would agree that his in-game athleticism is a lot more than what he tested at. Okay, taking some more time because I know emotional knee-jerk reactions in the heat of the moment during the draft, but taking a little bit more time. How do you feel about Mukuba? Hey, do me a favor and go down to the comments section and let me know your thoughts about adding Drew to the defense. And also, while you're doing that, be sure to drop a like on this video. Because just like the previous one that I dropped, if we can get 4,000 likes, then I'll give away an Andrew Mukuba jersey to one lucky subscriber on the next live stream. Or heck, if you want it to be a Jihaad Campbell or a Ty Robinson one, then I'll make it that as well. Now, speaking of Ty Robinson, Philly got a crazy athlete in the Nebraska defensive tackle, who ironically enough played with Cam Jurgens on the Big Red and is one of his closest friends.
Me and Cam was a year older than me when I came in, and so I got to kind of see him grow up and learn the position at center. So we got to battle against each other each and every day. So we were pretty close. And then, when he's been back here for a little bit, just doing some workouts, staying, doing off-season stuff. And I just kept kind of joking with him. I said, make sure you put in a good word for me when you go back. And he's like, oh, trust me, I am. So, yeah, no, me and him, I'm super excited to be back and playing with him and going against him every day.
Hey, Cam, so obviously a lot of people are paying attention to the NFL draft right now. The Eagles just traded up to take Ty Robinson, defensive tackle from Nebraska.
Let's go. Let's go. Go Big Red. I got to text him right now. Let's go.
All right, if you're not sold on this dude, then something's definitely wrong with you. Because we're talking about a 6'6", 300-pound defensive tackle who had the fastest speed at 10 yards in the last 3 years of the NFL Combine, which is naturally some of the athleticism that helped him rack up 6 sacks and 11 quarterback hits. FYI, that was the most among all defensive tackles in college football. Leading underdog NFL analyst Hayden Winks to share Robinson's 16% pressure rate at a 0 or 1 technique is just insane stuff. AKA Robinson is a freak athlete with some serious upside. I'm telling you, this might be my favorite pick from the entire NFL draft, but I'm going to get into that in a future video because there's just so much to break down from day 3. Anyway, after that 4th round pick, it was the Cleveland Browns who traded up with the Seattle Seahawks to take Shedeur Sanders. Now, the reason I mention that is because prior to the start of day 3, NFL Network's Tom Pelissero shared that the Eagles could be a dark horse candidate to potentially take Sanders.
Surely you can't be serious.
I am serious. And don't call me Shirley.
Personally, nothing against Sanders, but I did not want him. I don't really necessarily want the distraction. Again, wish him well. Hope he does well in Cleveland. But there were reasons that he fell down the board. For example, Arash Markazi had a scout tell him that the vast majority of NFL teams didn't even have him on their board, with the reason for that being some of what Todd McShay added the context to during visits with other NFL teams.
I told you there were 2 personnel people that I spoke to who were in the room during interviews, which means they're key parts of the organization. Let's leave it at that. 2 teams drafting in the top 10 with quarterback needs where the interviews did not go well. Not disrespectful, nothing harsh, just felt like the phrase I've been using, and I think it aptly describes it. We didn't get the sense that Shedeur cared all that much about what we thought of him.
I'm sorry, that's not a good look, and the guy continued to add that impression basically everywhere he went. I mean, come on, you had Tom Pelissero sharing that an NFL assistant coach told him their interview with Shedeur was, quote, the worst formal interview I've ever had in my life, saying he's so entitled.
Other weaknesses, we're slow learners, and we're not particularly good listeners. That'll be a huge problem.
Okay, I'm just trying to offer some humor there, but that would be bad enough as it is. But the assistant coach went on to say that he blamed his teammates, bad body language, didn't throw on time, but the most important thing for him was that he just wasn't good. Now, everyone's entitled to their opinion, and feel free to share yours down in the comments section. However, to say that he's not good is a little bit too far-fetched. After all, regardless of if you think he didn't play the best competition out there, he still led the FBS in completion percentage and threw 37 touchdowns. So look, that is saying something. It's just personally, like I said, I never really wanted to consider him for the distraction that he would be in Philly. Granted, you're right, it's a moot point anyway with the Browns taking him. Yet you can't deny it does make it much stranger since they already selected Oregon quarterback Dillon Gabriel ahead of him. To which I wouldn't necessarily say Cleveland, Ohio, and Dillon Gabriel are a match made in heaven.
We love warm weather. I think we should play more football on nice grass instead of the artificial stuff. And the more sun, the better. Why do we do it to ourselves? Like, do fans want to sit in the snow and the rain? And let's just make arenas. Let's make domes. Let's do grass. Let's do more fireworks at games. Yeah.
Well, good luck, Dillon, because those games in November and December are going to be a living hell. Although, there's a reason that Cleveland's had 40 different starting quarterbacks since 1999. Like, that's literally 10 more than the next closest team during that span. But sorry, I'm getting off on a tangent there. Back to the Eagles. According to Jeff McClain, the trade-up of the Browns, if you want to buy into or say, were they going to take Shedeur Sanders, according to Jeff McClain, a source told him the Eagles were not intending to take Shedeur Sanders. However, I'll let you decide when Howie selected a quarterback in Syracuse's Kyle McCord the very next round. And then didn't really answer the question when it comes to would they have selected Shedeur at 145 if Cleveland hadn't taken him one pick prior.
Yeah, I feel like the best thing for us to do is focus on the players that we brought in here. You know, it'd be a disservice to the players that we drafted to talk about other teams' players. Obviously, we got enough on our own plate to worry about with the Philadelphia Eagles, so we'll stick to that.
That's fair. I get it. It should be about the Eagles players, so we'll move on. But one last thing here real quick. I do feel like the Eagles dodged a bullet. That's my own personal opinion. Would love to know what you think about it. Again, let me know in the comments. All right, like I said, moving on. Next in the 5th round, Howie selected UCF cornerback Mac McWilliams, who's another smaller DB at 5'10", 190, but he is versatile and tough, playing on both the inside and outside while being a 3-year starter at UCF, where over the last 30 games, Mac registered 23 passes defended, 2 interceptions, and 9.5 tackles for loss. Now, I don't know that that's necessarily your answer for the other outside corner spot, but at least it brings in some competition for Keely Ringo. And also, by the way, in case you weren't aware, Mac did rank in the 99th percentile when it comes to zone coverage. All right, the next pick on the list is Georgia linebacker Smael Mondon Jr., which, you knew Howie would eventually land a Philly dog. And this is clearly one of the most athletic linebackers in the class that allows you to bring in another option at off-ball linebacker. Like, come on, honestly, if Mondon hadn't dealt with a foot injury, then it's very likely he would have gone day 2 instead. Now, obviously, I already mentioned Kyle McCord, so I won't dive into a ton of his film here. But the St. Joe's prep is coming home, and being a lifetime Eagles fan is pretty legit to see.
I really had no idea who it was going to be, and then I got the call from the 215 number, and it was just a surreal moment, obviously, growing up in the area and just being around a ton of Eagles fans. It's, you always dream of being a quarterback on the Eagles, but obviously, any team could have, come and got me at that point. So just a surreal moment. A lot of hard work, obviously, was put in to get there. And, just a great moment to share with all of them.
Congrats to Kyle and all the picks out there. Unfortunately for him, there is no chance on earth that he will upseed or upstage Tanner McKee as QB2. But I will say, keep an eye on this, because QB3, I wouldn't be surprised if he actually vaulted over Dorian Thompson-Robinson, so just keep an eye out. Anyway, after going 5 defensive players to start the draft, the Birds went 4 straight offensive guys. And aside from Kyle McCord, the other 3 were on the offensive line. But let's start with Boston College center Drew Kendall, because this guy's the son of Pete Kendall. And as Anthony DeBona reminded, but Pete was a first-round pick by the Seattle Seahawks back in 1996 and played 13 seasons in the NFL. So probably not surprisingly, but when it comes to athleticism, he is near the very top. The best part that Anthony was sharing, though, is that Kendall was actually listed as a center/guard. And remember, that's important because Dylan McMahon, the North Carolina State product, the center who eventually ended up getting cut, was not able to make the roster because he could only play center. So maybe the versatility helps Kendall make the roster. Next was another offensive lineman with NFL pedigree in Michigan tackle Myles Hinton, being that Hinton's dad, Chris, was selected 4th overall in the 1983 NFL Draft. But Myles has just a bit more size at 6'7", 323 pounds, along with 34-inch arms and starting experience at both left tackle and right tackle. Plus, like Anthony also shared, Hinton played with Eagles offensive lineman Trevor Keegan back at Michigan in 2023. Okay, finally, the last offensive tackle drafted by Howie was Texas's Cameron Williams. And much like Hinton, Williams is massive at 6'6", 334 pounds with 34-inch arms. The thing is, this dude's just not as refined because he's only a 1-year starter with just 16 games under his belt. But like Fran Duffy said, if Williams had decided to go back to school, he likely would be a first-round projected pick. So seeing that that's the case, is there not really a better spot for him to join Jeff Stoutland and enroll at Stoutland University? By the way, this is a little bit off topic, but I do find it interesting that Howie, the whole top 30 visits didn't draft a single player there, but you have a lot of these guys that played with some of the Eagles, right? You have former connections, played in college there. I just wonder, did he lean on that a little bit more so, especially because the board was not falling, maybe not as much interest in your top 30 visits? They've done it before, sure. I'm not saying this is the only time, but it's just a little bit more heightened and emphasized there. Because after all, it helps to get some insight on the guys who played or at least roomed with several of the draft picks. Anyway, the last pick for the Eagles in the 2025 NFL Draft was Virginia Tech edge Antwaun Powel-Ryland, which we're talking about a guy 23 years old, 6'3", 252, with 16 sacks last season. Yeah, 16. But it's not like that's a fluke, because in 2023, the dude had 10 sacks for the Hokies then. Granted, he can be somewhat scheme-specific, but why not take a shot in the dark on a player Fangio thinks could prove something on the edge? I'm just saying, there's tons of potential, and you never know who might turn out to be that next guy who's a late-round pick that turns into something. Or heck, maybe it's one of the several undrafted free agent signings the Birds went with. Like Shedeur Powell, running back out of Central Arkansas, who shouldn't have a problem fitting in with Saquon and A.J. Dillon thanks to his 495-pound split squat. Or there's also Florida running back Montrell Johnson, who will get a chance to prove something at camp. along with Wake Forest wide receiver Taylor Morin, Rutgers O-lineman Holland Pierce, Toledo linebacker Lance Dixon, Texas A&M cornerback BJ Mays, Oregon safety Brandon Johnson, and Toledo safety Maxon Hook, who also fits the bill of having played with Quinion Mitchell previously when he was at Toledo. Of course, we'll see if any of those guys make an impact, but you know what the most surprising thing to me from this entire draft and UDFAs? Notice you don't see a single tight end. Not a single tight end drafted, not a single tight end so far signed on the undrafted free agents. Although there could be some good news on that front, with Ian Rappaport saying the Eagles would like to keep Dallas Goedert. Except, we'd like to keep him, but in all seriousness, I think the better question is, how realistic is it that happens?
Dallas is part of the team, as we speak. Obviously, as we go forward, we're going to continue to address things on this team, and right now, nothing further. Dallas is a heck of a player, heck of a person. Certainly don't want to do anything publicly where we're discussing anyone's business, but have so much respect for him. Been to 2 Super Bowls together, and obviously would love him on this team. You always love having Dallas on this team, but we're not there right now on any of that. But love Dallas Goedert.
I'm kind of at a loss on how to interpret that, especially with this, new information. It's similar reports. The Eagles do want to keep him, but Howie Roseman, reading between the lines, the body language there, not going to tell a whole lot, but it just sounds like the two are at odds. Sure, we would like for it to happen. I'm just not entirely sure. Because Dallas has all the negotiating power, especially how the draft shook out. Again, my hope is the two sides come to some sort of agreement, get this thing done, and then we can just stop talking about it. Anyway, you guys let me know the thoughts on this latest update and everything else from the draft. Also, I do want to just say thank you because the channel hit 125,000 subscribers in a little over 2 years since starting it, which is just crazy. Speaking of, congrats to Dr. Octopus and John for winning the recent giveaways for the signed Jalen Hurts jersey and the Jihaad Campbell giveaway. FYI, I'll be shipping those out as soon as possible and email you with the info as soon as I have it. Alright, reminder to hit the like button on your way out, turn the notifications on because the moves are just starting to happen. The draft is over, Howie said he's going to be making moves, there's going to be other signings. Turn the notifications on so you don't miss it. Until next time, we'll see you guys. This has been the Philly Special.